After Jesse escapes from captivity after the events of Breaking Bad's season finale, Jesse Pinkman must come to terms with his past if he wants to form some kind of future. A future where he is free and not behind bars. Breaking Bad is my favorite TV show of all time. I cannot express enough how much I love this show. It's one of the few shows that just got better and better with every episode. I cannot remember a single time when I just wasn't invested. Every single second of that show had me invested with my eyes just locked on the screen, and good mother of cheese balls and eggs, Bryan Cranston can act! And the same could be said for Aaron Paul as Jesse Pinkman, Walter White's partner. I thought the series ended perfectly. Every story arc came to a satisfying and emotional conclusion, all except one. Jesse Pinkman. Don't get me wrong, I love the way the series finale ended. Even the way Jesse Pinkman left the show I thought was great, but I just kept thinking to myself after it ended, the hell's gonna happen to Jesse? I mean, where's he gonna go? I didn't even think we were gonna get an answer, because aside from Better Call Saul, which I think is also a great show, I was pretty sure we'd seen the last of Jesse Pinkman, as well as Breaking Bad as a whole. Well, what do you know? I was wrong! Again! We now have an answer to that question from Vince Gilligan, the creator of Breaking Bad himself, in the form of a film he wrote and directed called El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. So, now that I've seen this movie, let's talk. El Camino is a beautiful movie visually, and it's all down to its incredible editing and camera work. Marshall Adams, who worked on Breaking Bad's cinematography, returns, and boy am I glad he did, because Breaking Bad is a show that is well known for its creative and ambitious camera techniques. A great example of this would be the famous shovel cam POV scene in the Season 4 episode Cornered, or literally any of those beautifully shot time-lapses. El Camino is no different in terms of how creatively shot it is. There are so many gorgeous shots where the camera just pulls back to create these wide shots of the New Mexican landscape, and it's just jaw-dropping how beautiful it looks, and yeah, I know I've said beautiful a lot, but, well, shh! As you may have guessed, this movie does contain Breaking Bad's trademark time-lapses, and as usual, they're all amazing. In particular, a bird's-eye view shot of an apartment with several moving pieces where this guy is just looking through it and tearing it apart. It's amazing. Aaron Paul returns to his most iconic role, and he gives a career-best performance. He is phenomenal in this movie. He has not lost any of his on-screen potency. There is a lot of focus on Jesse dealing with the guilt he carries due to his past, as well as the PTSD brought on by his imprisonment. A very effective way that this movie conveys Jesse's transformation from a criminal with a good heart to someone who reluctantly kills is Gilligan's choice to use flashbacks. That brings me to my only real issue with this movie, which is something I can't criticize this movie too harshly for, but it's been 6 years since all these actors played these characters in Breaking Bad. Quite a few people from the show make a return here, whether it's through flashbacks or people that Jesse meets on his journey, and while everyone gives a terrific performance, for some actors it is very obvious that a lot of time has passed, and some actors have very clearly changed, whether it's through age or just their physical appearance in general, and that can be a little distracting and unbelievable. It's cool to see all these characters again, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it did legit have me thinking, how do you go from looking the way you did in Breaking Bad to the way you look in this movie, and then back again? They're playing these actors as if no time has passed at all, and chronologically it doesn't add up, but at the same time, I can't say I'm surprised this happened because this movie was made on a budget of $6 million. That sounds like a lot of money, but trust me, when you're making a movie, it really isn't. There is no way they would have been able to afford the technology necessary to even remotely convincingly de-age these actors or digitally alter them. Even then, there's still the risk that it would look uncanny and weird in all the wrong ways. Yeah, Marvel did it almost perfectly this year with Samuel Jackson and Clark Gregg in Captain Marvel, and yes, that movie had a much bigger budget than this movie, $152 million to be exact, but then you've got movies like It Chapter 2. Granted, It Chapter 2's $72 million budget is lower than Captain Marvel's budget, but still a lot bigger than El Camino's. But in It Chapter 2, they had to digitally alter Finn Wolfhard for the sequel because he just got insanely tall and changed quite a bit facially, which is only natural. People do age, which is exactly what happened with the cast of El Camino, but in It Chapter 2, the digital altering and de-aging they used on Finn Wolfhard is horrible. It is so terrible. So just imagine what it would look like if they had done the same thing in El Camino, a movie with a $6 million budget. Despite the obvious changes in appearance and age, it is still amazing to see some, if not all, these characters make a comeback, and better yet, these characters don't just come back for the sake of, hey, you remember this guy, right? He was in the show, remember? Every single character in this movie, whether it's an old character making a comeback or a new character that we've never seen before, every single character has a purpose for being in this movie in order to effectively advance Jesse's story. I would definitely rank El Camino amongst the most intense episodes of Breaking Bad because my days, when this movie wants to get intense, it really gets intense. Most of the movie takes place in confined and claustrophobic spaces such as houses, ducking down in cars, and cramped spaces in between walls and mattresses. Going in this direction adds a considerable amount of tension to the story and acts as a physical representation of the walls quite literally closing in on Jesse as time runs out and his chance of freedom slowly slips away. That said, when this movie wants to be, it is pretty funny too. The dark comedy in this movie was a surprising highlight, especially in one particular flashback scene that did have me giggling like a 2-year-old. There are action sequences in this movie, but like in Breaking Bad and even more so Better Call Saul, they are very sparse, which I'm fine with personally because this movie is solely about Jesse and finishing his story, so I was really glad that there was such a huge emphasis on the character of Jesse Pinkman and the story. That said, when the action gets started, boy does it get started. The action in El Camino isn't over-the-top, insanely well-choreographed and fast-paced kung fu battles like something out of Mission Impossible, because the action sequences in Mission Impossible rely on tension and spectacle, whereas the ones in El Camino rely purely on tension and suspense. And it just makes them all the more exhilarating. El Camino's action isn't the kind of action that has you pumping your fist up in the air in excitement. This is the kind of action that has you thinking, oh shit, he's gonna die. Oh, please don't die. I'm begging you, don't die! I love the action sequences in Mission Impossible. It's part of the reason I love those movies so much. But the reason this kind of action works in favor of El Camino is because you care so much for this character and everything he's had to go through just to get to this point. And it just makes the action so much more suspenseful. So suspenseful to the point that you're not really having fun with the action despite how well shot and how well edited it is. You're genuinely scared for Jesse. You're scared that he might actually die. This may seem like a weird thing to praise this movie for, but I love that it doesn't just say, hey, you know the series finale? Yeah, Felina. That's not the series finale. This is. It does take place after the events of the series finale, but on the whole, it just feels like its own self-contained story about a man who was stripped of his freedom and his journey towards freedom. The point is, you can still watch the Breaking Bad series finale and see that as the end of the series, because Breaking Bad was Walter White's story. And Jesse played a huge part in that story, but Breaking Bad began with Walter White and ended with Walter White. El Camino begins with Jesse Pinkman and ends with Jesse Pinkman. Breaking Bad is Walt's story, and El Camino is Jesse's story. El Camino is basically a movie that ties up one last loose end and gives the story of Jesse Pinkman closure, and the way that it delivers that closure is so beautifully poignant and emotional that I came close to shedding a tear multiple times during this movie. It is one hell of an emotional thrill ride, and I absolutely loved it. El Camino gets a 9.7 out of 10. So that was my review of El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie. Thank you so much as always for watching. I do hope you enjoyed this video, but before I go, I would just like to ask you guys, what do you think of El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie? Do you think it was good? Do you think it was bad? Do you think it was somewhere in the middle? Please leave your thoughts down in the comments below, and I will indeed see you guys in the next one. Once again, thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.